Observer's Log. We have concluded the 90s era of Trek series. Last month, we finally got home from the Delta Quadrant, and so now we're going to take a look at this second batch of movies. I guess we can effectively call them the TNG movies.
Yes.
Welcome to From 60,000 Light Years, a Star Trek podcast where myself, Jay Clark, and my other host over here, Eric Berry, better known as Trekkie B47, we are looking back at every series and groupings of movies as their own iterations throughout this franchise as a kind of a celebratory look back on its way to celebrating 60 years, which is just an incredible feat. And I'm excited for today. I know Eric is just simply
Yes.
because there is no way that you can convince me that this right here is not the pinnacle of Trek. Like what we're gonna kind of cover today is Trek was it is the mountaintop, and unfortunately, and
Yeah.
I know people hate to say things like that and not touch it, but this was simply the mountaintop for a variety of reasons we're going to cover. But
This
yeah,
was peak Star Trek. This was when Star Trek was firing on all cylinders. I mean, the movies connected to different series in various ways. We had cameos galore. We had some amazing actors, just A-list actors in these movies. I mean, this is peak Star Trek.
and it's not just the movies themselves and what they were doing, but it's also everything around it. Like this is Star Trek is
Oh
getting
my
joked
God.
on and sitcoms galore. I'm thinking Simpsons, Saturday Night Live, In Living Color, Nickelodeon's all that.
Mad TV,
At
like
TV. You're getting Entertainment Weekly special TV guide, special edition covers, four-parters with all the captains as a series. You're getting
I
late.
remember the epic one that they did of like all the series.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
was like a huge I had that at some point.
Yeah,
Um
the merchandise, the toys, the games, like all the
Everything.
tie-ins, novelizations, extended unit, like
The pocket universe was like
it is
kicking off in the books. Yeah.
everything is there. I mean, we'll touch more specifically on it when we get to around first contact, but like you got all the diversity you could want at one point in time. You have a black captain lead, you have a female captain lead, and then you got John Luke doing it. Like there is at one point anything you wanted in Trek was at your fingertips, and we have never experienced anything like it. And to be a
And
kid, it was amazing.
and it was great because these movies were like every 2 or 3, 4 years. Like, I mean, they were coming
It's
out
hitting
at a
the
clip.
same pace as from the OG cast era.
Yeah.
It hasn't stopped. It's just
At
going.
this point, Star Trek was a well oiled machine, and these movies were part of that machine. You know, that was when Studio 18 in Paramount, I mean, that was like the Star Trek a lot. And God, I remember behind the scenes pictures when they were filming Enterprise and they were filming Nemesis at the same time. And you got, you know, Mr. Scott Bakula meeting Sir Patrick Stewart
Right.
like behind the scenes because they were filming on the same lots. This was like ultimate Star Trek.
It's Star Trek knew what it was, it knew what it wanted to be, and it was able to operate in a
Yeah.
way that just like I said, it was mainstream. Definitely wasn't cool. It wasn't cool. It's mainstream as hell. Not necessarily cool,
Yeah.
but we'll get into more depth as we go through this thing. But let's go ahead and pick up the baton. I guess from essentially our third episode where we looked at the TOS movies. You leave off with Undiscovered Country in '91. We're now at 1994. TNG is off the air. DS9 is in its second season, and
Voyager is in a glint in the
it's
pre-production
pre-production.
eyes.
Pre-production, and you get the seventh movie in the Star Trek film franchise, Star Trek Generations, which is essentially the bridge, the bridge movie.
Hmm.
We get the team up of the OG with the new G, Picard and Kirk. This this is one of the earliest memories I have because '94. I'm 7. I can tell you the theater I was at. I know this, because I'm sure it was been renovated since then because this is still flat seats era. I know the row and the chair I was in
Wow.
watching this movie. Because I just, spoiler alert, Kirk dies in it. That is such an ingrained memory for me, sitting in that theater and watching that moment in this film. Like this is just, yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching this with my dad. Obviously, he was a first generation Trekkie. He grew up with the original series. So, yeah, I mean, we had just, essentially moved across the country from Georgia to Illinois the year before. So, I mean, we were just kind of getting back into Star Trek, and, TNG was syndicated, and watching that whenever it came on. So the first TNG movie was, probably the first Star Trek movie I saw in theaters.
Okay, we share that then. Yep, yep.
Yeah. And it was incredible to see the, like, how the timelines happen, like how they just crafted the story so that these two captains could meet, and it wasn't a dream sequence, it wasn't anything like that. It was clever sci-fi, and I think a lot of people have mixed feelings on Generations, but
Sure.
I liked it. I really, really enjoyed it.
I can watch Generations over and over again. Now, I don't necessarily care for the beginning sequence of the movie,
Sure.
but from that moment of post Kirk fake out death, yeah, I'm catching this on HBO at any point. Oh, I can watch this over because yeah, I for me also, I this is my favorite Star Trek score. Period. What Dennis
It,
McCarthy does
mm-hmm.
with the music and incorporating the original Courage elements to some of the TNG Jerry Goldsmith elements to the elements he was doing for Deep Space Nine. Like you know what To Live Forever is because it's used in like every piece of Star Trek promotional piece there is. But that is like one of the singular best 2 minutes and 11 seconds of Star Trek music that
I
there.
I think I have in my CD collection somewhere. I have the original Star Trek Generations soundtrack because I love the music of the film so much. And yeah, I mean, God, this movie has so much going for it. I probably have the same amount of love you do for Generations as First Contact. Like, we'll get to that later.
Okay. Okay.
But no, I think Generations is really solid. And I loved how it was off the back of one of the greatest TV season finales of all time with All Good Things. And, I was reading some behind the scenes production on it, and they were writing All Good Things and Generations at the same time.
They were filming them. Oh yeah, they're writing them. Yeah, then they were filming it during season 7.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And I just love that, it's that TNG feel, but then we're starting to see the universe change. We see newer uniforms mixed in. We see the new revised bridge. They swapped out that bridge module at some
You
point.
know the D bridge on the base. I love the side elements. The rate. It's a nice. I like the look to it. I'm not against it.
I like it too, and I think they said that they extended it because now it's a widescreen movie
Yeah.
format, so they wanted to capture that fuller feeling of it. But then I kind of look at what they did for the third season of Picard when they recreated the
And
original D
it fits
Bridge,
right. It fits in no problem at all.
and
Yeah.
that was widescreen, and yeah, there's no problem. So, yeah, but no, I do like the additional stations. It makes the bridge feel more alive and that there's more to do, not just some guys randomly standing in the back, because it makes sense. This is Enterprise D, the Galaxy class ship, even because I've got the technical manual, another product of 90s era. We got technical manuals, books out the wazoo. But even in the TNG technical manual, they said that the Galaxy class has multi-generational generations. Like there's upgrades that you can do to the over the lifespan of the Galaxy class, and one of them is swappable bridge modules. So you know that had a refit at some point before the movie, and we got the awesome bridge that it had.
This is how much I'm a love. Like this is, I have theme music.
Let's
Well,
go.
because I play the saxophone, so I got the theme music like sheet from this time,
Oh,
and it's just like this is like because at this point, because this was every Star Trek fan's dream. Like you've never seen a franchise interact with itself like this before, and while we had kind of seen it throughout the TV show, like, literally you are having the two standout captains of this series
this was
meet
as
in
big
that
as like
movie.
two doctors from Doctor Who meeting. That's
Right.
how big this was.
This every I was reading some pre-production. They were saying scripts had been leaked. I don't remember hearing the leak. Like I said, I remember like, oh crap, they killed Kirk, and just sitting there, just like,
I don't think we were even online yet at that point,
well,
as a household.
interestingly enough, Star Trek continuing to make history. Star Trek Generations is literally the first movie to have a website
Yes.
for promotion. Like it is. Once we're talking little history here, this movie was the first one to have a website dedicated to it, which was still active. I think throughout the mid 2010s at some point. I think it's probably shut down by.
You could probably go back on the Wayback
Yeah,
Machine and find it. Yeah,
but
but
this was the first movie with a website. Like that's crazy. That's kind of crazy because it's just. I mean, websites aren't even standard for movies like that anymore. But there was an era where literally
right, every movie
that
had a website.
had the website and it was coolly designed to tie in with it. But yeah, this
Yeah. No, it was this movie was just groundbreaking on so many levels, and I did a rewatch of the TNG movies because I got the nice 4K set
oh yep.
of them, and it came with the digital editions, and so I think one weekend or over the course of a week, I watched all four movies, and Generations really holds up. That 4K transfer, they got rid of the green tint that was on some of the DVDs. It is a gorgeous movie.
The D looks good, even though it's a lot more CGI than we're probably used to. I love its warp away sequence when the space station's getting destroyed. That battle between it and the bird of prey, while simple and like nothing crazy, it's still
Yeah,
beautifully,
the
to
landing or the crash sequence with the model, that was just amazing. There is so much about this movie that's just incredible.
again using physical models. 'Cause I remember watching the behind the scenes portion of
Yep.
that where they're literally doing that little piece in the parking lot and just like, yep, here comes the saucer. And
And
yeah,
they
it's
had all the little trees and just, yeah, it was amazing. And then they built that front section where they have the close up. That was like a big 5 foot thing where they could do the close up shots. It just, I mean, yeah, I have the book. I have like all the behind the scenes books. I've seen the behind the scenes pictures. I mean, we don't get Star Trek like this anymore. This was an event.
it, this is the nadir here. Before I gotta ask, what's something you don't love about Generations?
So I know it's kind of played as a joke throughout the movie. It's Data integrating his emotional
Uh,
chip, and I know that's supposed to be it's a huge step for his character, but I feel that that step you see more of in First Contact, like the struggle of it. But they had to introduce it at some point, so they introduce in Generations, and I've always loved Data and like the comedy that comes from Data, the unintentional comedy, but it just did not work in a few scenes in this movie for me. It, it makes the tone feel a little awkward in places, but I do like the growth of the character.
you just don't like seeing the growth. It's an ugly growth. It's an ugly growth.
It's
Yeah.
not great. It's not great. Like and everyone's like, he's like, oh shit, and it's like, and he's like,
That worked to me in those moments. I like some
that
of the
that one
humanity.
was fine, but it's like the awkward moments with Jordy, like the I could do without the Mister
Oh
Tricorder bit,
yeah, yeah.
like that was just kind of off. Um, but yeah, I mean that's really one thing that sticks out to me. Otherwise, I thought it's a solid movie. How about you? What's one thing that you did not particularly like?
Hmm, yeah.
I know it's hard for you because this is your like
This
one
is
of your favorites.
it's not the strongest plot. Like one of the criticisms is that it's not a mainstream plot. You have to be kind of Trekkie to enjoy it, and to some extent, I agree with that. But also at the same time, it's like, yeah, like
I
that's
like it though.
that's what makes it
Yeah.
what it is. Like that's part of the thing. And so yeah, the Nexus is a little bit of a it's one of those things, but it's just a great enjoyable ride. Like
Yeah,
it's
like
the
like with
moment you
the
get to see Kirk and Picard meet, the two great captains. How are we gonna make it happen? I don't know. Is it a little loose? Sure, but they found a way to do it in universe that's not crazy, not erased, and has had repercussions in different ways, and there's still ways for it to play out.
Mhm.
I it's it's enjoyable. Like I'm not sitting here calling it a technical masterpiece. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's just some good, enjoyable Trek. That's what I need my Trek to be. Like it's just you're not trying to do too much. You're like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right there, and that to me is what Generations represent with the best score for Star Trek of all time. That's one thing I will fight anybody on. Best score period ever in history.
The Nexus was an interesting plot device, and I thought the character of Soren was just a little weak just because we didn't spend as much time with him to really
Yeah,
feel his pain, because we saw that in the beginning, but only briefly. Like he's kind of in the background. Like they
yeah,
focus a little more on Guinan during that Enterprise B sequence. But all the Elorians in that scene are like they just got ripped away from the Nexus, that like
right. They pull it directly
paradise.
out the hive. You could do that to somebody. Yeah, just
Yeah. So, but I do like the Nexus as the gimmick for this film, because there's that echo of Guinan. I like that we explore Guinan a little more. I kind of like how she's the bridge in the Nexus and that it's an echo of her. And
right.
that means, okay, so if she's an echo because she spent a little bit of time in the future, could there be an echo of Picard? An echo
Echo of
of
Kirk.
Kirk?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
And so I think it was a very interesting plot device, and we got what I loved about this film was how much we got to explore Picard, and the fact that he lost his brother and nephew in that fire, and how this kind of starts, I want to say, a whole movie arc just of this personal journey for Picard, and
Yeah.
appreciating his crew more and treating them more like family. And we see that more in Insurrection, which we'll get to. But what we see in Generations is a growth of Picard that started to open up in all good things. Like when he attended the poker. This movie was the perfect like expansion of that, because it explored Picard's human character more and him dealing with loss. The scene where he breaks down in front of Troy, that destroys me.
A rough scene. Yeah. That's a rough scene.
And yeah, it's just a really great, and at the end of the day, all these movies essentially boil down to Data and Picard. I'm not mad about it,
That's going to be
but we'll
an
get to it.
interesting trend more so going forward.
Yeah.
Wrapping up what you spoke, I just hear the last lines of the movie. Time is a companion. That it's not an aggressor. It's a companion to remind us to take into things because they won't last. And he's Riker's like, speak for yourself, sir. I plan to live forever. And then beautiful.
It's so beautiful, but I do love Soren's like opposite line.
Oh yeah.
Time is the fire in which we burn, and this movie is all about time. That is a central theme. Not only timelines and like actual the jumping point of time, but how we live through time. And that's why I think the Nexus is just such a I thought it was such a great way to tie everything together. And I think it'd be cool if maybe at some point down the line the Nexus ribbon is still out there. Like it could be a plot device again if they needed it to be.
Generations is still producing little things 30 years,
Yeah.
down the road. Wonderful, wonderful. It would have been interesting to see with this movie because there is the whole thing with the uniforms, them act like literally Riker and Data wearing DS9 uniforms because you got the switch back and forth because they had designed new uniforms in a TNG era look
And
that
there
were
are prototype toys out there.
prototypes and
Yeah.
but they never made it to the screen, so you kind of get the weird plays. That's why Riker's looks horrible because it's Avery Brooks's uniform, so it's not fit for his body.
Yeah.
But I still kind of love the play because at that point, yeah, you're seeing both. Why wouldn't what is the switch over? So I kind of like
And
this.
and I do like it was the
Oh,
introduction of this badge right here. I love this badge on the
that's the best
TNG
one.
uniforms.
That's the best Delta badge I think there is.
Oh, I mean this Delta badge lasted for so long. Like this is one of my favorites. But and then we got the incredible sets. We talked about the bridge set. One of my favorites, we finally got to see stellar cartography. And that was such a cool sequence with
Yeah.
like the CGI. And I know they use blue screen, but you're essentially in a huge like
Oh,
bubble surfing
yeah.
the galaxy. It's cool.
I love the tech. It works. It works because as we begin to kind of move to first contact, as I was kind of reviewing, it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
generations really kind of is that torch. Like, yes, we brought these eras together, and then we're moving forward, and then you get the first contact release 2 years later in '96, and first contact is really kind of like this is what Trek is moving forward, or at least
Right.
in this era, that back half of the '90s, and essentially what we get until the '09 movies. This is kind of like this is what Trek is moving forward, and it's a clear tonal shift with Star Trek First Contact. But again, this is the peak of the Star Trek mountain right here.
Yeah.
DS9 is firing on all cylinders.
Hmm.
You got the Minion War. Worf has joined the cast. Star Trek Voyager is locked and loaded there in the Delta Quadrant loss, and you got as we all know one of Eric's favorite Star Trek First Contact. Though seriously one of the strongest entries in the film franchise. The
Yeah.
new era TNG for good or bad in some ways, in which we're gonna get
Sure.
all into. First Contact, sir. What are your directed by Jonathan
Oh
Frakes?
my God.
How do you feel about Star Trek First Contact?
So I am not joking when I say this. I have probably seen this movie over 47 times. And that's not a joke. That's not me throwing a 47 joke. I have seen this movie. I have replayed and rewatched this movie. I can basically, as I'm watching it, quote it line for line. And I'm not good. I'm not good with Star Trek quote. I'm not good with quotes in
Delayed.
general, but I can I can literally just act out this entire movie if I wanted to. Like, I love First Contact. I remember going to the theater very clearly. At this point, 96, I was in high school. I remember going to the theater with my dad and my sister, and my sister was bored to tears because she was not a Star Trek fan at all. Um, and I loved it. I loved every single bit about this movie. I remember when it arrived on VHS, and my comic store slash video store, which was a bike ride down the street from me, they got the Star Trek First Contact poster that was promoting the VHS, and I had that on my door until I moved out of my parents' house. Like, First Contact was was my pinnacle Star Trek movie.
I'm not mad at you. Like this First Contact is good. Like it's good. It's a great story. It is to Picard almost to an extent what Khan was to Kirk.
Yes,
You get the return of
and
this bat, which is just
we've got those parallels. Second movie, villain from the past returns. No, First Contact was everything to me back in the mid 90s. I fell in love with everything. That's one of my favorite uniforms of all time. The Enterprise E
right.
is one hot ship. I
Okay.
love the Sovereign class.
Let's talk about some shit porn here, because yeah, the E is sleek,
Oh my
sleek.
God. That opening shot where it's just banking through the nebula and we get that three-quarter pass by. I fell in love with the ship instantly. And this was the time when, now I was online. I was seeing pictures and hints and the news and on Trek BBS, the bulletin boards. I was seeing all the conversations. So I had so much hype before this movie was out. And I know a lot of people complain about how over the years the Borg have become played out.
Mhm.
But First Contact gave us like a major lore about the Borg. And then because Voyager was on the air, it affected Voyager afterwards because the First Contact spacesuits were used in Voyager. You
Some
know,
ways better than others. Yes, yes, it did
the
make.
the the Borg elements were in Voyager. I mean, it First Contact set the tone for what I enjoyed most in the mid to late 90s of Star Trek.
Yeah, First Contact is certainly the Bible that jumps out, like just the way it looks. Of course we get a bunch of new ships, the new Starfleet. You get all the
Oh,
Akira class, the Nebula class, like that battle, that initial battle with
mm,
the Borg cube is
so
stunning.
good.
So good. The clarity, one of the things I love about it is the scale of it. Like you get the sense that just this Borg
Finally.
is massive. You have these limits, and then even when the E shows up, you get the like the different proportions, and it's like
That
yeah,
that whole sequence, the
oh,
music, and it's got Worf's battle theme, like the
yep.
Klingon dun 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 dun. I mean, it was. Oh, I love that. And then dun na na na,
Oh,
and
just
it.
swooping in,
I
sex off.
freaking love that battle. I would watch that on repeat. And we get the guy from Severance.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, Adam. Yeah, yeah. As the
Adam
helmsman.
Scott is the define. That's how he got his start. No, but so it's the Enterprise. Ba-na-na-na. I love that scene. But yeah, the Saber class, the Norway class, the Akira class, and I'm
Millennium
so
Falcon class. Where do you stand on that?
the which one?
The Millennium Falcon class. The rumor of if you watch closely, you see a Millennium Falcon as the.
Look,
Uh,
I'm not mad at it. If it's a scout ship, whatever. Whatever. I mean, we had R2D2 in 2009 Star Trek floating in the debris, so the connection is there. No, like I said, it's a great movie start to finish. You have Alfre Woodard, who's become such a huge star over the years, and she is phenomenal in this movie. It's crazy to me. And then for Lower Decks to somehow get her back.
Say that for Lower Deck, sir. Say that.
I know,
Oh yeah, but yeah.
but there was so much that branches off from First Contact. It affects Star Trek from here on out. Picard dealing with the Borg has lasting repercussions throughout
Yeah.
Picard's life and through Star Trek Picard. So yeah, I mean, the ship, the uniforms, the action, the suspense, the music. the effects, my God, the visual effects in this movie.
Clean, just clean.
And then because that was the time I was watching Voyager every week, to see the an EMH in a movie like Robert Picardo, and then you had Ethan Phillips, Neelix. He was the maitre d in the holodeck scene. That was him without makeup, and I recognized him instantly in the movie theater. I'm like, this is so cool. Like, I could gush about this movie forever, but I'm gonna stop because I'm gonna let you talk about it.
It's Star Trek doing what Star Trek does. I mean, like again, this was the whole Worf being on the Defiant, not being on the Enterprise, but this is how he gets on the Enterprise for the
Yep.
film, like referencing that he has joined the DS9 cast. You're seeing television and film interact in a way that, once again, this era that wasn't happening. If
Yeah.
you had properties doing this, it was always separate. It was never at the same time. And while it's not monumental as we expect and see more so now, it was still like the fact that, oh, you're even referencing one another. Like this thing exists at the same time. The fact that it was even doing that was so cool. Like as part of, because it was, that's what makes this franchise as epic as it is. Because like yes, it all counts. It's all part of canon, and this is one of the bigger movies to do that, especially for for this time. All these things are going on, and as you said, yeah, you start to see the play. The same phaser rifles are showing up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had, you got the new uniform. So then, yeah, we had that random switch during season 5. All of a sudden, yep, DS9 is wearing the gray top uniforms. It's that cross play, and again, Trek. This is the mountain peak. Just I love the E
Yes.
because it references the it was to me, I remember when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's an updated version of the Constitution class. So yes, I'm getting the long nacelles, the good salsa section, but also yes, it's not as tall. It's very low and sleek, and it's just like, oh yeah, the E is a sexy mug.
And you could tell that this was a ship meant for battle. Like, of
Oh,
course, it could do the exploration, but this was like the sleeker, like meaner version of the D. Like,
I wasn't expecting to see families on this ship. I'm not,
no,
you're not expecting to see families on the E like you were on the Galaxy class. Like, yeah, this baby had some bite, which we see in the fight. They let you see it right on
oh
that
my
that
god,
that closing
and then
shot
and
where
then
they're firing.
and then
It's,
quantum torpedoes, and we're all like, quantum what?
oh yeah,
What torpedoes?
he is sexy. The movie continues. We get one of the biggest things about Star Trek that we love: time travel. So now we're being taken back to a foundational moment in Federation history. Zephyr
Which we
conquering.
have kind of like we saw hinted at and
Yep.
referenced a little bit, but never to this degree. And that's why I love First Contact, because it's like, we got literal first contact. We got to see how the Federation started. And Enterprise builds upon this whole thing.
The direct connection from this movie, literally.
And we do. There's even repercussions in that regeneration episode of Enterprise about the
That'll be
Borg
that'll
sphere.
be an interesting discussion. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it will be an interesting discussion. But the fact that they didn't forget about that, like they didn't, because it calls upon that larger universe. And with the original series, the Next Generation, I mean, they reference each other, or TNG reference TOS here and there, but with all these series now, with Deep Space Nine and Voyager and First Contact, literally all three crews at the same time.
Yeah.
And there was no other way that this could have played out. Of course, they're going to reference each other. But what I liked about First Contact is, even if you weren't a Trekkie watching all the series week to week, it still told a solid story. Like you knew that Worf was from TNG, but you may have not necessarily knew that he was on Deep Space Nine. They do it in a natural way, and they introduce these elements. Like, if you didn't know all about the Borg before, which I don't know why you wouldn't, they include those flashbacks. They include, you know, Picard talking about it, and like, oh, the echoes, and like how they played that. And this works as not only a sci-fi movie, a Star Trek movie, but also a low-key horror movie too.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the darker those moments, when the Borg have taken over the decks and they're going through. Yeah, those are some. I got thinking like in the head. I'm thinking of which I remember being one of the key promotional scenes. All the what's just called lower deckers. They run into that room
Oh,
and it's all foggy, and then all of a sudden, just the lasers, the
the
light lasers,
yes, the
oh,
lasers.
oh, just showing up all of a sudden. They're like, oh crap, and it's just like, wow, yeah, they got screwed.
Oh my god, and just the acting alone. Like you got Alfre Woodard and Patrick Stewart acting their asses off against each other. Like the whole blow up the damn ship. No. like
Passion.
I love that. And how it ends, and he's explaining about Moby Dick, and she's like, actually, I never read
I've never
it.
read it.
And it's so good. I love how all the actors come together for this. The story is just solid. I can't find anything wrong with this movie, and I know I'm totally biased.
So it's no from a movie and a story perspective, I'm there with you. Even you talking about James Cromwell as Zephyr Cochrane,
Yes.
Alice Krieg, the first run of the
Oh my
Borg
god.
Queen. Like, yeah, some it's big names and stuff. It's set the blueprint. For what
Yeah.
a lot of Trek is trying to do. The big names in these roles contributing to the story. The things I don't like about First Contact is some of the trends that it has started, which Trek tries to, like, unfortunately, which we will talk about through the
Yes.
TNG movies. I hate
It
how
sets up the villain.
well the villain and how it's always the crew needs to split. It's all
Mm,
hard S and a Riker esque team for most in a sense. A lot of the
yeah.
TNG movies, it never like one of my biggest complaints about the TNG movies as a whole is Picard is never on the bridge for the moment. Like the moment or the one thing, like Picard is never on the bridge. Versus while all the action doesn't,
That's why they give Riker command.
yeah,
Uh,
like, but even like the
Nemesis.
TOS movies, the major moments that are happening on the ship,
The captain is on the
it's
bridge.
Kirk in the bridge
Yeah.
making things happen, and so it's kind of it starts some negative like filming traits that I don't like see echoing in the franchise. As a film and the story it tells and what it does, yeah, yeah, I got no complaints. Jerry Goldsmith with the score, and starting the trend that we'll see in the next couple movies with keeping the original score and then interspersing the film score in the
The
middle.
elements
Yeah,
into it.
going a trend that I love. I love the score here. Some
Yes.
harrowing, beautiful music all at the same time. Yeah, it's some trends that's kind of like, wow, it was great for what it was, being its own thing. The fact that now it's almost kind of like, yeah, that's what we need to do, and everybody's been
Well,
kind of,
that was kind of the success of this movie. Kind of backfired and started that trend in a way, because this movie was also very financially successful.
this is the movie that pushed Star Trek mainstream to the point to where it's like at this point, yeah, every year this movie hit it to where Joe Blows, who not Star Trek fans, all
Yeah.
were like, oh, Star Trek, okay. Which I think, yeah, put unfair pressure on the next one because of how successful it was.
And I totally agree with you, because my biggest problem with all of the films since First Contact, even the 2009, it's like some big bad guy, some big action thing. It's less about the thought pieces. And Generations, there was action, there was a villain, but it wasn't central to the story. It was about Picard. It was about Kirk. And the theme was time, and there's more of a theme. And then First Contact, amazing, of course, the Borg, which will affect Voyager and everything after it, but big action movie. And then because it made so much money, they tried to replicate that, have a big villain, mustache twirling villain every
Yeah.
chance that they get. and you kind of lose the Star Trek like thoughtfulness of it.
You miss some sci-fi-ness that like even like
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek 1 wasn't a baddie. The motion picture wasn't a baddie. Star
Right.
Trek 4 wasn't a baddie.
It was like a natural,
Yeah,
a
Generations
force
is
that
not
was greater
it.
than us.
Yeah, it's not, unfortunately, what a lot of Star Trek going forward has become is all of a sudden it's threat to Earth, threat to Earth, threat to Earth. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
those moments have occurred. Yes, motion picture is a threat to Earth. Voyage Home is a threat to Earth. First
Mm-hmm.
Contact was a threat to Earth. All the other movies weren't necessarily a massive threat that had to be global civilization. That's like even one of the things I love about Generations is, oh yeah, it's this galaxy of people. It's not our people. It's not human people. It's not a Starfleet outpost. No, it's just this galaxy of people who are living their lives are now being threatened because of what this guy's doing. Like I think it's that ability to not make it have to be, oh, it's so Earth centric, focused, big baddie twirling. Yeah, some of the beauty in what they can do with the things they play with
Mm-hmm.
get lost when it gets too focused in having to do that. Yeah, we're hitting this formula over and over and over again.
Yeah, and I think that's why, and we'll get, I mean, Insurrections next. And I know there's a lot of flack for Insurrection, but for some of the points we're talking about now, I'll say why I've really grown to appreciate it and love it over the years. But anything else on First Contact, because like I said, I could have a whole podcast just on First Contact because there's just so much that works. And I think Jonathan Frakes did such a phenomenal job directing. He had all that experience from directing TNG. He has since directed so much Star Trek afterwards.
This is what solidifies him. Like,
And
he
he
had been
directed
directing.
Insurrection.
Yeah, this is First Contact is what solidifies him and puts him in that space of like, oh, you know what you're doing, which is one of the reasons why they put him on the project was they wanted somebody who was familiar with Trek because a couple of the other directors they was like, yeah, no, this
Hmm.
ain't gonna work, and yeah,
Which kind of shot Nemesis in the foot, but we'll get to that. um, but no, like I can't gush enough about First Contact. It hit me at the right time. I was 14 years old when this came out. I was in the height of my Star Trekness as a kid. Like I was in my teenage formative years. This was like, oh yeah, Borg, Next Generation, let's go. I mean, this movie was everything for me as a kid. And
not
like I
yeah.
said, over the years, I've probably literally no, not even joking, have seen this probably over 40, 50 times.
I'm much like this First Contact in this moment specifically really represents when I really in my own way fell in love with Trek. I mean, you see like that's the original
Micro
Micro
Machines.
all three sets. I had the novelizations. It's watching the recorded tapes. It's what it's like this is yeah, this is just the good old days. Like it's that nostalgia hits hard here. Like I remember, cast and crew interviews on the talk shows and
Oh my God.
Star
This
Trek the
was everywhere.
magazine really being Star Trek the magazine at the time. Like it was everywhere in a way that unless like I don't know if we can truly fully paint the picture of how it was everywhere because this is
Uh,
pre-internet.
yes.
This is like and it was everywhere.
I will say, if you go to the First Contact page on Memory Alpha, they have a whole section about like a merchandise gallery.
Man, just it's
This stuff was everywhere.
Hallmark ornaments. Like this is when Hallmark ornaments for Star Trek were really like it was like yeah you're heavy into it. You're the board games, the card games, the VHS games. It's so much Trek stuff. So much playing cards. The toy so, so much.
There's
Going
so
to Toys
much.
R Us and seeing the damn aisles and the figures and oh.
I
Like
had so
conventions are
many.
really popping off now. That's what this era is. Like
Yeah.
these really starting to come into play, and Star Trek is a big part of that, if not the leader.
I mean, you had the Viacom store like that we talked about, and it was like half of that was Star Trek. And I remember they had a first contact line of figures. They had the standard Playmates, 5.5 inch figures, but then they did a line that was like 6, 7 inch figures, and that was like, whoa. And so yeah, the merchandising was crazy for not just this movie, but for this era.
Oh man, what a time! And now we start to hit on the other side of the hills. We push 2 years later to 1998, and we get Star Trek 9, or at this point they dropped the numbers. It's just Star Trek Insurrection, which yes, I enjoy. It's a good Trek.
I like it a lot. Look, I've heard over the years that people say that this feels like a long episode, like a long television episode.
Sure does.
And I'm not mad about it. That's the thing. Star Trek is primarily 99% a television show. And
Yep.
what I like about Insurrection is, yes, there's the big villain with Raffo,
Mhm.
with the Sona, but we're seeing again focus on Picard and Data for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but we see the deepening of these characters, and especially the lighter side of Picard, when Picard's allowed to open up a little and fall in love, which we didn't get to see a lot on Next Generation. And for him to have a love interest with Anish, and I just thought, again, you have these amazing actors that are, huh?
Was Anish cheating? I still don't quite understand the dynamics.
Uh,
Uh, I, I still get questions now. I'm like, wait,
I think it was a more open society. I don't know.
I'm like, ain't that her and
I didn't think her and that other guy were together.
I don't know. I get those vibes. Like, yeah, that's your. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
No, it's fine. No, there is so much to love about this movie. I really like the setup. And it's kind of a reverse First Contact, because Starfleet, we get to see the Starfleet blinds and how they observe other planets, which we've hinted at.
Yeah.
We've seen before a little bit, but not to this scale. And Federation having low key cloaking technology when they shouldn't. What's that about? And
Admiral going bad,
oh, and that's what you have the alien villain, but you also have a badmiral. And we've seen some bad admirals before, but this was a badmiral.
Bad. It's just bad, yeah.
And I'm so glad he got his just desserts at the end. Like, that was satisfying.
That's a scene to this day. Sometimes I'm still like,
yeah, that's not great.
Bad way to go. That's a rough way to go.
We get to see the dress uniforms, the new dress uniforms, First Contact style.
Clean uniform, very clean.
Just there's so much about this movie. I just really love the story for Picard, and even the side stories, like with Troy and Riker coming back.
You get that infusion, which is.
And I know they play him shaving his beard as like a joke in the beginning, but it goes along that theme, kind of carrying on through generations, these themes of time and, going back to our younger selves and appreciating life. And that's what I love about Insurrection, is because they are fighting for something. Even though they're fighting against Starfleet, essentially, they are fighting for what they believe is right. And how much Star Trek can you get than that? They're
It's
fighting for what they believe in and to save a people. And that's one of the greatest Picard speeches that's still relevant today. How many people does it take?
yeah, yeah,
About force
yeah.
relocations, about moving into other territories. How many people does it take for it to become wrong? And that is what Star Trek does best. It poses these moral questions, and I think Insurrection is one of the best messages of all the films.
It's one in terms of like that messagey. It's up there in terms of that. Yeah, we
Well,
going.
I would say it's the best message presenting in the
Yeah,
TNG films.
yeah, but like, it makes no secret, and yeah, it's a long episode of the TNG series. Yeah, it's
Yeah, and
yeah, I got no problems with that. Give that. It's the same complaints about Generation. Sometime. Oh, it's just a long. Feels like just an extended episode of the show. Yeah, okay, I'll take that right into my blood. Like I enjoy Insurrection, no problem. Yeah, I enjoy the humor that that you get. Like the conversations with with Riker and the beard. And then smooth as an android's bottom, and he's like, nah, or even when they're out trying to move the people through the mountains, and you got that weird conversation between Troy, Crusher, and Worf, and it's like it's great comedy and humor in moments that work. It doesn't feel forced. It's just like it.
but
It's
it feels like these are people that have been a crew for 10 years at
oh
this
yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah.
They're a family. They know each other very deeply and very well. And one of the greatest like character moment arc fulfilling things, beautiful downplayed scene that doesn't get a lot of praise, but LeVar Burton, I think we touched upon this.
Oh,
Him getting his sight back
that scene at the with the sun.
with
Oh,
the
that's a
sunrise. LeVar just, and we get to see Jordy actually see a sunrise for the first time, and that emotion. It's such a short scene, but it's really at the heart of the film about youth and God, I love Insurrection. It is a good movie.
the Baku theme is one of my favorite. Like that's just a beautiful score. It's just light. It's airy. It's just
Oh,
yeah, and the way it works with the Goldsmith theme too. Yeah, I enjoy Insurrection. Let's see. What is one thing you don't like about Star Trek Insurrection?
um, I think it's we talked about it's those couple moments where it does get a little too jokey, like the big cartoon pimple on Worf. I didn't need that.
Okay, gotcha.
Um, but
Here's mine. It's Action Star Picard. Which is all comes
uh,
from First Contact. I was like
where he's got like the tank top
in
and
the
just the
tape. It's like
bicep
really
going.
Action Star Picard. Like Picard is supposed to be an older captain. I get it. You're feeling a little youthful, so that's the excuse we can turn you into John McClane in the stars. Yeah, Action Star Picard. Yeah, it just is. I'm not a fan of Action Star Picard. That's.
Okay, yeah, I get it. I definitely get that. But I don't know, man. Like that whole shuttle chase in the beginning,
Captain shot. First time,
so
first time we
good.
see the captain shot.
Well, Captain's out. No, I'm talking the chase between Worf and Data. The a British tar is a
Oh yeah, well yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
yeah, like that one. And just right at the end, and you feel that whole tension, and then they pull up at the last second, and it was a cool sequence. It was a very awesome sequence. But no, I love the Enterprise E. I love it in this movie. It's a great ship. I did not like the joystick. I don't think anyone likes
Oh,
the joystick. That was lame. I mean, it looks like a 20th century
it's
computer
very
games.
it's
It
very much
sucked.
like so 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's side note, since we're talking about the E again, how do you feel about the E bridge?
I, because I love the Voyager bridge. We established that. Um, the Enterprise E bridge, it's definitely a battle ready bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really does feel like there's less science going on, more patrolling and more action, which, yeah, I mean, Dominion War, all of that. It's sleek. I like that it's a continued aesthetic, but
Mm-hmm.
we're moving away from the natural colors, the carpet, to more cold metallic, and it's kind of that militarization of Starfleet that we see post Nemesis, and
That we've
it,
never
it
gotten out of yet.
and we haven't gone out of. So yeah, I do like it because I am a big fan of the Enterprise E, but there's just something I miss, like just the natural, like the wood, like the Enterprise D bridge. It's a classic for a reason. Like, they incorporate nature with the wood, with the technology. I kind of like that dichotomy of between that. The Enterprise E bridge just looks samey a lot. Like,
It's
because when
definitely the
it's
pattern for stuff that's been and going forward. It's definitely the pattern of a bridge we've seen essentially
right,
throughout modern Trek.
it just gets really dark, and especially when they go to red alert, then it gets even darker. I
Yeah,
feel Insurrection, the Enterprise E, and
I was like,
especially
what?
Nemesis, it was lit dark.
Yeah, no, very, very much so. Like, yeah, again, there's some negative trends that kind of get picked up here. That, like, even in the darkness of Red Alert during Star Trek 3, it doesn't seem dark on that bridge. It makes sense for the mood and the scene, but it still also feels very light.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the E bridge from a visual aspect.
Hmm.
Functionally, I got no problems with it. It makes a lot of sense visually. Kind of the same thing with the Voyager bridge. We never get the view of it all. I feel like we don't get that nice view where it's like
I
everything.
I will say though, I had the soundtrack for this movie because I bought um or no, First Contact. Well, it was either the First Contact or Insurrection CD booklet where it had the fold out of the
Oh, you
Enterprise
did?
E bridge, and you had that wide shot that you never got in the movies. I'll
Mm,
have to dig that
I'll
up
definitely
somewhere,
like
or
that.
that image may be floating around online. But you get like a nice
It's a
shot
beautiful
of the
image.
empty
Yeah,
bridge.
I
Yeah,
can't give credit when it wasn't actually put on the test. Yeah, I
yeah.
got I can't count that answer. Oh man. Um,
But missed opportunity. Apparently, there was going to be D Space Nine characters. They filmed like Quark. Uh,
oh, there's all kind of rumored tie-ins with this stuff. Like, 'cause yeah,
yeah.
like the rumor that Avery was supposed to be in First Contact. But again, like there's those cool things. Okay, how can we make this connect? Like, I love how the fact is, they make mention of, yeah, this is post Dominion War. We're trying to get new
Or
connections.
in the middle of it, like why are we working with them?
This is post, I think. Right?
Uh
98. Yeah, this is post. Because they make mention how they're trying to, get the connections back with other people. Because yeah, D Space Nine.
oh, right. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
So yeah, I like how they're kind of placing it. It's that sameness again, referencing if you catch it, you know, you know. If you don't, it don't make no difference to the movie. You just still continuing on. And so yes, with that, we move on to 2 years later. Is it 2 years or was it actually? I feel like oh no, 4 years. 4 years. We cross
Yeah.
the millennium to our first post 9/11 Star Trek product with Star Trek Nemesis. Um, Say something nice about Star Trek Nemesis.
Sure. I think there's a lot of nice things to say about Nemesis. I will say that when I did my rewatch, because trust me, the hate for this movie is justified. I'm sorry, but Stuart Baird was not a Trekkie. He did not understand Star Trek as a director. I would have much preferred if Jonathan Frakes was still directing this. Um, I will say it's the first time I ever heard about Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Um,
With Tom Hardy. Yep.
it
Yep.
was my exposure to him. He is freaking great in this movie, actor wise. I think he delivered that performance, like just that evil, like
Yeah.
powerhouse.
He did that.
It was multi-layered.
He did that. I'll give him that.
I do have a new appreciation of this movie, like, 20 something years later when I rewatched it, because trust me, I was there on the internet forums. I saw all the hate for this movie in real time. I saw the behind the scenes mess that was happening, the interviews. Trust me, I was there for it all. It was not the best movie, but but I think now in the era of Star Trek that we're at now, everyone was, because the term post Nemesis is such a big term in the fandom,
Yeah.
and like post Voyager, post Nemesis, like everyone wanted to see, because Nemesis came out after the finale of Voyager. Like Enterprise was on the air right now.
Right.
And a lot of people point to this movie as kind of like the decline along with Enterprise of,
It's definitely half of that. Yes, for
yeah.
sure.
But despite all that, there was such a want for the universe post Voyager and post Nemesis. There were so many like pocket book, you know, novels dealing with the aftermath of Voyager and the Enterprise
The
E
fandom has
crew.
exploded. The internet is. It's these are the early days of that internet. Like, yeah, the fandom
And
is exploding in ways and connecting it had never been able to before, for
and
sure.
and it was toxic. But I know this movie gets a lot of flack, but I think I have a new appreciation for it in some aspects than I did when I first saw it, 23 years ago.
Yeah, it's a stinker for me.
Like, I know you can only polish a turd so much, but um, I'll say a couple things I like about it. I like that we finally get to explore more of the Romulan culture, a little bit. Like, I mean, we get to see Remans for the first time, which was a big lore thing. I like Commander Denatra. I like that at the end of
yeah.
the movie, there's kind of like maybe there's a piece, and that start like that even
Politics is
carries
standing for the
to,
right thing. Yeah, I'll take some of that
and
right now.
that kind of starts into Star Trek 2009. Like the Romulans are more open for peace. Even
This song,
Admiral.
yeah, story connects. It's great,
Look,
but
this movie is a 10 out of 10 for me just because there's Admiral Janeway. I'll leave it at that. No.
you get the Voyager connection. Yeah, so once again, Voyager's home at this point. Yeah, Janeway's an admiral, so you get the cool cameo and the convo between Janeway and Picard. I'm
But again, even a stinker of a movie like this, it still sets up the universe for better things to come, because the death of Data sucked at the time. Like I was like crying. I remember I was just crying that he died. Like legit in the theater. I had some tears because it's Data.
This one was spoiled for me because I remember in all the talk and the whole, they were trying to have their Wrath of Khan type of moment, and it was like, okay, so going in the movie, you knew somebody was going to die because the whole big question was between either kind of Riker or Data, but you knew one of the two was going to get it, and it was just like, okay, it was a little
Yeah.
heartfelt, but at the same time, it was kind of like, but. Really, it is interesting. Nemesis really is the foundation for, yes, post Nemesis Trek, because you have Riker and Troy leading, going to the Titan. You have, the death of Data and now Picard, and the next era of the Enterprise, which is so unexplored. It is
I
the.
want to know what happened to the Enterprise E that they
I,
mentioned in Picard.
I'd like to know too.
What did Worf do to this
I
ship?
need to know. But yeah, the CGI to me is bad in this one. I
It
don't
was not great.
yeah, I don't enjoy the ship porn, which is sad. I'm like, oh, that's just
And it
the
didn't make sense. Like, you're in space and you can't have things pull apart like inertia and gravity is a thing in space. Like, I don't know what's going on with that. This was the most, like, quote unquote actiony of all of the movies in a way.
yeah, because
Like,
you got the car chase in the beginning, the shuttle chase with
so unnecessary. I hate the Argo. Like, really, a dune buggy in Star Trek and a dedicated shuttle for it? Give me a break. You guys have hover technology, like, and it's like, oh, we're and again, action Picard, like you were saying, I totally
yeah.
get it. He takes it out for a spin. Like, Picard, what are you doing? And kind of like the blatant disregard because that was a pre-industrial planet that they were on, and they're just like, okay, well,
We're
okay, the
here.
dune buggy makes sense, but they kind of threw that out the window with the
Jumping,
shuttle.
launching into the shuttlecraft. Yeah,
It was
it's
a mess, and I do blame a lot of that on the director because even the cast and interviews I saw at the time, they were like, "This guy does not understand Star Trek."
yeah, this unfortunately was it becomes a sour it at the time was a and for a while was a very sour note for kind of the TNG cast to go out on because
Yeah.
essentially if when you look at it, this is '02. It's really the end of an era
Mm-hmm.
because we had for 23 years, we lived in a world where there was a Star Trek movie averaged every 3 years, just
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Like that is wild. From 1979 to 2002, you got 10 Star Trek movies. That's a
It's
stretch. That's a stretch.
it was such a huge stretch, and I know there was a lot riding on this movie because this was the 10th film,
Mhm.
and
And it was known that this was the end. Like this, it was known that this was the
yes,
final journey for this crew. So this was the Star Trek 6 for the TNG crew.
and I think in that respect it failed because Star Trek Six: Undiscovered Country. We talked about it. One of my favorite TOS movies, like probably the favorite TOS movie for
Oh,
me.
easily, easily. We ranked it number one, both. Yes,
And but Nemesis was supposed to be that, and it's the worst TNG movie.
because you have like one of the more enjoyable moments, which I wish you had a little bit more time with, is the whole celebration at the beginning where you have Guinan popping up again. For the wedding, you have the
And they
uncredited.
cut Wesley like
That was actually like the most TNG moment I think out
yes.
of for the crew for the entire movie, and that's
And
literally like the second scene in the entire film.
and I remember especially around this time in Insurrection, there was a lot of talk of, the odd even curse, like the even movies are the good ones.
Mhm.
And this broke that for
Oh yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Um, One huge thing that I hated, hated in this movie, and probably just over all of the TNG films, is the mistreatment of Deanna Troy.
Yeah, she gets it right. Yeah, there are
This movie in particular, she
there are
essentially
cringy
gets
scenes.
mind raped.
Yeah,
I
that's a cringy scene.
I hate that so much because it demeans her character. And for Picard to be like, "Oh, open up that connection more so we can find him." Screw that. Like, to use it again, that was so wrong of Picard. And to use her pain and her trauma and to open herself up to that feeling again. And I mean, it was kind of like it was kind of like a mirror to the like sensor gas probes, but in a mind way, which again, terrible. because you're opening up to her pain. She does get her resolution, like she gets to push the fire button or whatever, but that it was anything but that was just cringe. And everyone making fun of her because she crashed the Enterprise D. Look, that ship was going down no matter what.
She just happened to try and do her best before because
And I'm
nobody was
so
there.
glad they cut that joke out of Picard season 3 when they were on the Enterprise. Did you see that deleted scene? Like
I didn't. I'm about to go.
there was a deleted scene where they mentioned that like Geordi's like, "Whoa, what are you doing, Deanna?" And like I'm not going to crash a third one or something. It was so bad. I'm glad they cut that deleted scene. Well, again, the mistreatment of Deanna Troi in these movies is not great. It sucks.
I mean, as we've kind of highlighted, like unfortunately, as a whole, not just Nemesis, the TNG movies really became the Picard and Data show.
Yep.
And yeah, there are some nice, like Worf gets a couple nice moments here, there. Geordi gets a thing, but for the most part, the rest of the crew is just kind of like, yeah, here's
Crusher barely gets anything, which
Crusher
is
gets
sad.
nothing. Troy doesn't really, outside of her and Riker,
Right.
kind of, but even Riker to an extent gets pushed to the side a little bit, in some places and whatnot. That's the one downside. Whereas it's not as much of a extension of the cast
Cast.
as the TOS cast was into the, like it was, it always been Kirk, Picard, and I mean Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. That continued on with the other cast getting their auxiliaries. No, but TNG was
It
that
was
thing.
Picard and Data.
It just became Picard and Data, and it's kind of like, oh, okay.
But I mean, now we can look back on that because, with the passage of time, we got Picard season 3, which is such a great send off, way better than
Well, I
Nemesis.
can't wait till we get to that. Yeah, because
We'll get there. We'll get there because
yeah,
Picard has its own set of problems.
boy.
But but I really hate that Nemesis started the quote unquote downfall of that golden age of 90s Trek because only 2 years after this, the cancellation of Enterprise was announced. And that hit me like a ton of bricks because I knew we were kind of winding down our golden age of Trek.
Definitely the end of an era for sure. Like it's
And and it
crazy.
sucked for me as like, when by the time Enterprise ended, someone in my mid 20s where Star Trek was such a huge part of my life for 20 years.
Mm.
And then knowing for like the next 13 years we'd get jack crap or like, well, not, I mean,
Or
2009. So 7 years, 7 years. But still, like, there was a huge gap. And unfortunately, Nemesis started that. So I can't defend it too much, but I will say I have softened on it over time. I'm not as mad at it as I was when it first came out.
yeah, I'm not mad at it. It's just when I'm like, okay, that's what this one is. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll change the channel. Like, yeah, there's just nothing that draws me to it, and I think it. Unfortunately, yeah, it is that first door in that we are closing this era because this, like, think of it like this. During this same stretch, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars was as big as it was only off of three movies until you got to 1999 and you
Yeah.
got Star Wars Episode 1. So like during this period where you have like the other major sci-fi franchise literally putting out diddly squat for the most part. And then you have the other one which is just a constant producer throughout this time period is a crazy dynamic. Like I was hoping to have I know in our VHS cabinet at home, like Star Trek had its own award show in like 98, 99, and I had that on VHS for
Oh,
literally like it
wow.
is a Star Trek award show. Like they have literally anybody who has ever been anybody in Trek there. They had some sketch with Kate Mulgrew playing Janeway and a bunch of other people they were making fun of Trek. Like had the in memoriam. I was like, oh,
Oh, I
it's
remember that. They did, it was the Frasier cast, right? They were
yes,
riffing on
yes, they had
Voyager.
yeah,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
like the UPN Awards or something. It
It was
was,
something. It was completely dedicated to Star Trek. It was like
oh,
just
yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah,
their
yeah.
whole thing, and it's just about the legacy and impact of Star Trek. This might have been, I'm guessing, maybe for the 30th anniversary.
That
Um,
sounds right. Yeah, but
was
so that was 96. That was peak first contact time. That was a great time.
it's just like that is like these are foundation. These like when we talk about our love for Star Trek, it is these days because like we're
This is the
these are
foundation. We were
these are
in
the
our
days.
formative years
Like
for this.
I'm a kid. Like this is like when I'm coming home from school, I'm playing with my mic. Like those are the toys I'm playing with. Like I still got yeah, it's my D bridge, my D mod, like all that stuff. It's just everywhere. This is yeah, this is nostalgia on overload right here. And having been experienced and like I said, literally seeing the Trek spoofs and literally anything. Like Rugrats, I'm sure did a Trek spoof at one point. Like it's
Oh my
just
god. Like Mad Magazine, like
every,
everything.
everywhere. It
Yeah.
was just everywhere in a way that is just we will never see again. And I think that's okay. Because like you
Yeah.
think like look, you take a year like 96, you had two shows on the air. So you had 50 something episodes, new episodes of Trek plus a Trek
Which
TV,
now we get 50 episodes of
a 5
Discovery
different
over
series.
7 years.
Right.
Like,
Like to
yeah.
think that you had this time period. And like I said, also one of the things I love is it feels like Trek knew what it was. Like it's one of the things we'll really talk to when we get to the JJ verse. But even going back to the TOS movies, these are the
Mhm.
release months. December, June, November, June, December. And then the TNG movies is November, November, December, December. Like it feels like they knew what their pocket. It wasn't the summer blockbuster. It wasn't
No.
the big action movie. No, this is Star Trek.
This
We're
is
not
Thanksgiving. This is
right,
Christmas.
right.
Bring
Just
the family together for Star Trek.
right. It wasn't trying to be over the top necessarily. Like unfortunately, I think that's one of the things, especially you see a little bit in Insurrection and Nemesis. It's the CGI. You're relying on some. It's not as many practical effects. It's kind of you're starting to do a little more with the ship simply
Yeah.
because you can. It's not necessarily completely working. Like you start to see some of these issues that really become highlighted in later Trek. Like I
Hmm.
said, unfortunately, First Contact kind of starts that path a little bit of, yeah, this is what things are going to be like going forward a little
And
bit.
First Contact was the last time that they used the Enterprise E model
Yeah,
because from then on it was just CGI.
it's
And
all CGI.
they screwed up the Enterprise too. Like there's different like people noticed that there was some extra decks. Like you can see comparisons of the E like online on some
Those be
Star Trek.
wider, closer
Yeah,
in. How many
there's
decks is
things
it?
that some they changed. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, as firing on cylinders as it had been,
Oh,
cracks in the armor start to pop up.
this reminded me of the damn scene in Nemesis where Riker and the Reman fall like 50 stories and they're already supposed to be on the bottom of the ship. I hate that crap. You know how the ship is designed. Like you guys got deck plans. Like again, I blame that on the director. I don't even know what this guy has done post Nemesis
Let me see.
himself.
Let's go to. Let me go back to my Nemesis page. Directed by Stuart Baird. Filmography.
Yeah, I'm going to IMDb.
He hasn't directed anything since Nemesis.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. He's just all his credits I see are editor.
Editor. Yeah. So he's done a lot of editing, but Nemesis was his last. I don't. Oh, he directed Executive Decision and U.S. Marshals. I actually like those movies. Hmm.
And Nemesis was his last director
His
credit.
last director.
Holy cow. Well, Your post Nemesis wasn't as great, man.
Yeah, there we go, buddy. Who knows what, man, was Nemesis part of the problem? Who knows? All right, let's get to what we love to do, which is ranking a bunch of stuff.
I
Let's see.
love I love this
We
part.
don't have as much to do since these are the movies.
Sure.
Crew's not really changing. We're not talking series here. The hero ship. We get the introduction of the USS Enterprise 1701 E. I think I know where you're going with this easily. Currently, you have it. Voyager is number one, D is number two, Defiant A, and then the OG. I have
Uh,
A, Defiant, Voyager, D, 1701. Where are you going with the E?
um this is so tough for me. Um I love me some Voyager, but
Go ahead and do it. I know you want to. I know you want to.
I love Voyager so much. Enterprise E on top.
Okay. E, Voyager, D, Defiant A, 1701.
Yeah, that's mine. Yeah.
E comes in as number three for me. Comes
Okay.
after the Defiant, but before Voyager. Yeah,
The
she's.
the the tough little ship beats out the E.
I
I get
did.
it.
Defiant is just, yeah, that's just a bad little ship. But yeah, oh yeah, the E is. There was a time E was the top for me. There was a time
Sure. Oh, sure.
when she first came out. It was like, oh yeah,
I
that's mid.
remember it was like either last year or the year before that. I got the master replicas Enterprise E, the XL model,
Mhm.
and I fell in love with that ship all over again. That's why it's number one. Like that, it is still like holding the Enterprise E in my hands and like seeing just from any angle that ship looks great.
That's why I used to love, and that's why I should have brought it out the box. The toys with the sound effects because it was
I
like
have that, yeah.
it's big and you can actually, it was like, oh, I can actually see it. And it's like, yeah, you see like in that, yeah, that the version that they did for the for Insurrection, the toy,
That's the one I have. And they've got that add-on where the yacht
with the
is
package
coming
out,
out the
yeah,
bottom.
that is in the box.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's because I love the micro machines. They're tiny. There was something about the big toys. It was like, oh yeah, this is yeah, you
This
can
is
really,
nice.
yeah, beautiful. Okay, let's see. We don't got to do the thing. We don't got to talk about uniforms. Oh, yeah, we got to do captains.
The
Okay, so
Enterprises.
enterprises. Where are you putting? I'm guessing you putting that E is number one, two there. I would
Yeah,
assume.
it pretty much follows the overall ship
Okay.
ranking. So yeah, E is top.
Okay.
Are you putting this above C?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
But
easy.
but A is still your top.
Yeah. A E C
Okay.
D. Yeah. Yeah. That's an easy one. Bridge. You currently have the D bridge is your favorite. Voyager is second. A 1701. I have D as a favorite. A is the second. 1701, and then Voyager. I'm. Ooh.
I am putting this below the A.
Okay. Okay.
It may be my favorite ship outside, but that bridge is being demoted.
Okay. I'm not mad at you.
So I got the D as my top, Voyager, A,
E
E, and 1701.
Right now, I'm trying to think is do I put it after the A bridge or the 1701 bridge? I'm gonna put it after the A. So I'm gonna have it as third right now
Okay. Okay. I see it.
before the 1701. Yeah.
Man,
Like,
Voyager just not getting any bridge love right
yeah,
there.
no, yeah, that bridge is not.
And when you average out our two Voyagers, it becomes like middle.
Yeah, that Voyager bridge for me is not going to get left. All right. Lastly, let's rank these movies. We're gonna do it two ways. We're gonna do the TNG ranking, and then we'll do the all-inclusive ranking.
Oh, okay.
So for the TNG era by itself, how do you have these four films ranked?
First Contact,
Okay.
Insurrection, Generations, and then Nemesis.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying Generations is still miles above Nemesis.
I get you.
It's a close race between 1 through 3.
I'm going Generations.
Yeah.
For me it's the release order. Generations, First Contact,
They
Insurrection.
just get progressively worse. Yeah,
Nemesis.
okay.
For me, that's yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
yeah,
how
that's
that
not
one.
bad.
Okay, now throwing it into the overall ranking.
Good
We both
lord.
had it the same way. We both had Undiscovered Country as number one, followed by Wrath of Khan, Voyage Home, Search for Spock, Motion Picture, Final Frontier. Where do you put the TNG movies within your new? So now we have 10 to rank. How is your 10 changing?
Okay. First Contact, number
Okay.
1.
Okay.
I'm sorry. If I watch a movie that amount of times, it's number 1 for me.
Not mad
So
at you.
First Contact, Undiscovered Country, Wrath of Khan,
Mhm.
Voyage Home, Insurrection, Generations,
Oh, okay.
Search for Spock, Motion Picture, Nemesis, and then Final Frontier.
Okay, okay, we gonna have a little difference here. Okay, so you got First Contact, 624, Insurrection, Generation 3-1, Nemesis 5. Okay. Oh, here's the okay. She's not number one. It's Undiscovered Country.
Okay.
Then it's Generations.
All right.
Then it's Wrath of Khan.
Both
Then
are number 3.
then Voyage Home.
Both are number 4.
Then Search for Spock.
Okay.
Oh no no. Yeah, then Search for Spock. Then First Contact.
Wow. Wow. Oh, you've got Search for Spock twice on
Oh,
there.
Goofy. Yeah, yeah. I was about to say I'm a little more. Okay. Then Insurrection. Let's see, what do I have left? I had those. Then it's Motion Picture.
Okay,
It's
on the same position for both of
five,
those.
and then it's Nemesis.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
Okay.
that's a solid list.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm personally offended that First Contact is middle of the pack, but
I,
I mean,
I was thinking that, so I'm like, but
well, I
unfortunately,
get it. I
if
get
I
it.
had the choice between which one, yeah, yeah, that's
I,
yeah.
I'm actually really surprised that Search for Spock is above First Contact. I'm not gonna lie, but no, it's your list. It's
It's
it's still solid.
that middle portion of the movie with the chase scene and the blowing up of the Enterprise. That's just
Yeah,
and like I said, that is the OG for me. That is the one I've
that's
probably
true.
seen the most. Like that is a straight shot of just nostalgia. Like yes,
But I like our overlap, like the Wrath of Khan, Voyage Home, motion pictures in the same spot.
it'll be
Yeah,
interesting to
yeah.
see where the next grouping, um, where the
Oh,
JJ one's coming to this.
those
Ooh,
might be all bottom of the.
that's
No,
that's gonna be interesting. That's gonna be.
no, it'll be interesting because I really, out of all of them, I love Beyond. So we'll get there. We'll
We'll
get
get
there.
there.
We'll
We'll
get
get
there.
there. Okay, from 60,000 light years, talking about the TNG movie era, sir. Before we get out of here, any last thoughts about this overarching the era of Trek? When we talk about
Man.
when Trek was Trek, this is
It really was everywhere for the 30th anniversary. I mean, there's so many things we could rattle off, like, Star Trek Las Vegas experience, which unfortunately I never got to go to. There was God, it was everywhere. There was like phone cards when those were a thing. There was just all the computer games. Like the licensing was insane for Star Trek, and but
The,
for
the
good
fact that
reason.
the fact that I was reading this that where the one of the video games for Generations didn't come out till 3 years later.
Which one was that?
It was which one is it? Where is it? Yeah, there was a story tie-in video game for Generations. Microprose produced Star Trek Seven Generations, which featured the film's voice cast as actors. The game roughly followed the plot of the film, with most of the
But
gameplay
3 years later, that was after First Contact.
wasn't released till May of 1997.
Wow. Wow. Talk about a missed opportunity there. Um, no, there's a reason that so many universally call this the golden age of Trek. Like, because it was. 90s Star Trek, there's nothing like it. Um, and the fact that that's like 30 years ago just drills right into my soul. But for me, this is the most nostalgic part. And so much of my love for Star Trek is here in these foundational movies and TNG and D Space Nine and Voyager and for me also Enterprise because TOS was my father's Trek. I was fortunate enough to get my Trek over and over and over and over again. And I'm personally, I feel really grateful that I got to experience it at the time I did when I was a kid and teenager and then going into college because of that, I will forever be a Star Trek fan. And to grow up with it as well in the age of the internet
Hmm.
was it just felt like all this technology was coming true and in some ways it still is. This solidified my love of Star Trek for the rest of my life. This era.
It was just a special time. Like, yeah, even me being a little younger than you, like, so yeah, for the me, this is just childhood, just it's full belief. Like at this point, like I'm watching a lot of this stuff now, just or then not even grasping the full range of some of this stuff simply because I'm only like 10 years old. So it's for me, it's still just the sci-fi face, space fantasy, boom boom pow upness of it all. Like I'm not getting the deepness of it that it's producing because it's over my mind, not even at the capability.
But
So for
that's the beauty of it. This
yeah.
era has aged like a fine
Oh,
wine.
it makes it so that like that ability to have it then and still be able to get things out of it now is such a joy because yeah, it's the slowness of it. This era is it's yeah, it's that there was a lot of stuff out there, but it was
Mhm.
stuff you had to sit with. Like it wasn't the constant posting from every actor or writer or producer we've ever seen involved for every little piece of information about every
Right.
little moment that's going on as if we were at the set. Nah, we're getting special edition, collections of DVDs or like I remember the VHSs and how all the
Oh,
covers would be, the Enterprise D for the TNG VHS box sets, which was like 50 tapes, or even the OG VHS for the OG movies
yeah.
and it being the Enterprise, motion picture refit. And like, it's all these
And then
cool.
in the early 2000s, getting the special
Oh,
edition
yeah.
DVDs with those
I still,
silver
still got
spines,
those
I
over
still
there.
have them
I,
too.
yep, I still got a couple over there. It's
And and for me, it was the books, it was the technical
oh,
manuals, it was the encyclopedia, it was the star charts, it was the chronology. Like,
stuff you would read over and over and over again
yeah,
because while there was a lot of this stuff, it wasn't it wasn't new stuff every day or every minute. Like it was stuff you would sit with and just get into again and again to the point where I'm sure some of them technical manuals like it ain't
like the
like as
back
if
of my
you were the
hand.
engineer on the ship. You'd be like, "Yep, I got this. I can fix it."
I know more about the Enterprise D than I do my own car and how it
Right, right,
works. Like, you know what I
right.
mean? Like, like I'm like Scotty like that, but you make such a great point. This was the era where we weren't online 24/7. It wasn't a constant stream. We could turn the TV off and we could just sit with things and appreciate them more. And I think, the whole theme of these movies throughout every single one is about time. Like even Nemesis, it's about a clone of himself and him. It's a reflection of Picard. And Picard, and yes, it is the Picard and Data story, but Picard reflects so much on his life as he gets older.
Mhm.
And as someone, in his early 40s, I'm I'm feeling it. Like,
It's the generations. Like, yes, when I was younger, I'm Mike Riker. I plan to live forever. Now I'm kind of like, I ain't living forever.
like, like,
I'm
like
more
you get out of
hard. This
bed
time is teaching me to cherish these memories. You
ex-
know,
like you get out of bed and something new hurts, and you're like, is this what I'm gonna have to live with?
uh,
It's yeah. So I think as time goes on, I have a deeper appreciation for characters like Picard and the stories. And there's just, as you go through life and get more perspective, you can look at anything Star Trek, any episode, any movie you can revisit at any time and still find some new angle of perspective, a new appreciation. And I think that's the beauty of Star Trek.
one of the things I really liked about this era was, especially it being pre 9/11,
And
it
innocence.
not the innocence, that hope that they talk about in the 90s a lot,
Yeah.
and especially with Star Trek, that future was still right, like as if we were still heading towards it, and it's right there. It is ahead of us. And in the way that at this point, Star Trek is influencing our lives. Like the tech that
Mhm.
we were seeing starting to come into play, and it literally being fashioned from Star Trek or copied from Star Trek. Like by the time we get to Nemesis, yeah, it's some flip phones, which are directly designed in the likes of a Star Trek communicator, OG style, or dreams of what we have now as the iPad and it literally being a tablet on Star Trek and video call. Like the future seemed right there, as if
Yeah.
there was still that as you called it innocence, but that hope that yes, we are progressing forward. Space, who knows? Like, and then kind of represented by Nemesis almost in a way, just that post 9/11, and it's just
Yep.
kind of like, yeah, it's a little bit
Which
outscored.
still carries to this day, and
Yeah,
we'll talk
yeah.
about that in future episodes as we get, further into Star Trek and the JJ Kelvin verse, and then beyond that with the Kurtzman era. And I think Star Trek has always done a good job of reflecting the current times. And what I seen reflected from 90s Trek was that hope and optimism that you're talking about. So, yeah.
The days of those special episodes that we talk about or these milestones, like that actually meant something. Like those kind of milestones, those kind of special episodes, they don't happen no more. Like that's where it was just like
In
this
the
this
age of
episode.
like streaming, the
Yeah,
story needs to go, and you
yeah.
don't get those special moments
Yeah, and
as
so it's
much.
it's yeah, it's really part of this is yeah, that nostalgia just yeah. I'll take a straight hit of that in the veins because yeah, this is
Oh, I'm
as
definitely watching some clips after we get done. For sure, I'm going to be on YouTube for like another hour.
because like yeah, as unfortunately it's never the same after this, and we will talk about next month with
Yep.
like Star Trek Enterprise, for example, and literally the direct effect of 9/11,
Oh my
what
God.
that
So
did.
blatant.
Like it's really like this is as you mentioned, Nemesis is really like part one of
Yep.
yeah, yeah, it's a wrap. It's never going to be the same. And so I which in a way we got teased a little bit kind of when we get to some of the Kurtzman era stuff.
Sure.
It almost but yeah, this is it's a peak I could only wish I can only wish to touch once again, but yeah, I'm gonna go get some of the nostalgia drugs tonight. And
Absolutely, absolutely.
thank you for joining us. This has been From 60,000 Light Years, a Star Trek podcast. Our journey this month through the TNG era of movies and this whole era. If you've missed anything prior to this point, we're at about the early 2000s. So Voyager, Deep Space Nine, TNG as a whole, the OG movies, TOS, yep, previous episodes. Go check them out. Like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, help us grow. We've got more to come. As I said, next month it is Star
We're
Trek
we're getting
Enterprise.
into it.
That's going to be a. Here's what's interesting going forward, and we'll get out here is just this has been an idea. I think there's a lot of space now for some of these opinions or conversations. They'll differ, and not that we haven't fashioned anything. I just imagine because of what Trek now is more of. So
Yes.
there'll be a little more space, especially as we're not as so nostalgic about some of these things as we are closer to them.
We are going to have some. I don't want to say heated because we get along well, but we're going to have some passionate discussions going forward. But I think that's how Star Trek has evolved, and just the nature of the internet. It's crazy. We'll get into it. I'm so looking forward to more episodes.
And they are sure to come. We hope you join us. Once again, thank you. Follow me at jclark787, my good friend here, Trekkie B47, and the channel at SFR. Wait, was it? No, FROM. Wait, no, what is? Oh, I got it. Yeah, it's a crazy name. It's there.
Wait, okay, wait, hold on. It's Star Trek ST from 60KLY.
Yeah, there we go. Bam. STFROM 60KLY on all platforms. Bad hosting, but it's been there the entire time. Paying attention. And yeah, next time we are getting all up in Star Trek Enterprise. Live long and prosper.
Keep on trekking.